Finally tonight, as we approach Sunday's centenary of the end of the First World War, we have a little-known, surprising and frankly distressing story of the very large number of people who died in the war's final few hours. The peace deal was actually signed just after 5 in the morning on the 11th of November 1918, and in the 6 hours before it came into effect, there were another, if you can believe it, 11,000 casualties. Along many parts of the front line, the guns really just did not fall silent until the appointed hour.
If you look, you will find something quite remarkable in a quiet corner of this Belgian cemetery. Two graves, those of the first and the last British soldiers killed in the First World War. They are just 10 feet apart. Their headstones face each other, and it is purely by chance.
It's fate. It simply must be. There's something prophetic about this. There's only 10 feet apart from them, and yet 750,000 British soldiers have died between these two men.
The last British soldier killed, Private George Ellison, was one of almost 11,000 casualties in the 6 hours after the armistice was signed. That's more than there were on D-Day in World War II, and they fell fighting in a war that had already been won.
Some of them are dying in action, which is almost inconceivable to us today, I think. Imagine being sent into combat knowing that the ink was dry on the piece of paper that actually ended this war.
On Sunday, it will be 100 years exactly since the armistice was signed on this very table in a railway carriage in northern France. But it was peace only on paper, and astonishingly, the fighting continued in several sectors along the front. Some Allied commanders felt the Germans were getting off too lightly, and they attacked them right up to the last minute. When negotiations got underway here on November the 8th, the head of the German delegation asked the Allies to agree to an immediate ceasefire. But the Supreme Allied Commander, Marshal Ferdinand Foch, refused. Had he said yes, and had hostilities ended on November the 8th rather than on November the 11th, something like 6,500 lives would have been spared. The war cost the lives of 750,000 British soldiers, and while we remember them this week, in Ypres in Belgium they are remembered every day. At 8 p.m. the traffic is stopped and buglers sound the last post under the magnificent Menin Gate. It's a touching daily thank you to the British Army for Belgium's freedom. John Irvine, News at 10, Ypres.